A very warm welcome to a pod full of saints for the 6th year. If you've never been here before, you are in for a treat on this almost longest day of the year edition. And believe me, if you haven't heard it before, this will seem like the longest day of your life, not just the year. Right, pod full of saints, it's three St Albans City supporters mumbling and talking rubbish about St Albans City. With myself, David Tavener, the ever laughing Jake Ellacott.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Lee. Hello, everyone. Well, this really flew past, didn't it? It's what, a month and a half we've had off?
Leeward, does it seem as though it's flown by to you?
Hello, boys. So, where were we? Let's begin.
Well, it only seems a few weeks ago we were talking about David Noble being sacked as head coach or whatever at Wealdstone, and we're all against him coming back to Clarence Park. It hadn't been mooted at that point, and I've only found one supporter in favour of it, but it's happened. I'm still dead against it. What about you two?
I was going to take the girls to the circus at some point over the summer, but I needn't bother. I'll just sort of plunk them down in front of the club's Twitter feed and let it all unfold before their very eyes. I mean, I'm not entirely sure any of us could have sort of seen this coming. How do we dissect this, fellas? I mean, Jake, I know that you and I have had supporters in our ears and there's been pros and cons of this argument. What has been the discussion with you and your clan, Tavs?
Well, it's just almost pretty much one-line emails and text messages saying no, and as simple as that. I say only one person fully in support of him. Hello, John. But the others, no. I think the club's done the wrong thing because, in effect, they sacked John Meeks to bring in a manager who failed at the higher level when he went there. And that's the level this club presumably aspires to get to. All right, he only has 6 weeks or whatever, so whether you say he failed or not, 10 weeks, I don't know. But he certainly didn't impress. And looking at some of the message boards around Wealdstone, they were not impressed with him.
No, I do think that the one person I do feel sorry for is John Meeks. I think you can't help but feel he's been thrown under the bus a little bit. When Nobby left, they sort of fast-tracked this appointment for John to the end of this coming season. Jake and I were at the fans forum, and they made sort of a big announcement then that Mixie was going to be signing this super deal. What does it say to him, when the person who left then comes back and sort of you've been demoted? I mean, look, as long as he's happy, the club are obviously happy. David Noble's more than happy because he's got a second chance. And very, very seldom do people get that opportunity, especially at this level as well. You've been demoted to a person who's gone to a higher level. And look, we're not begrudging the fact he's gone to try and better himself. That's not the argument. I mean, he went there to change things. And he did that okay. Old Nobby, bless him. But I just don't feel as though I would love to have Meeksy to have had a summer. I would love to have Meeksy to have a fair shot at it. I think what's happened here, fellas, is that the arse fell out of our season for the last month. There were some bad results in there, combined with some unconvincing performances. And that may have sort of forced the owner's hand a little tiny bit. We were on course for the playoffs. But at the minute, Nobby's back at the wheel, and let's see where we end up.
And what's your take on it, Jake?
I think, like most of us, I think we were surprised at the time when I saw the news come in. It sort of ruined my Friday, not in a terrible sense, but ruined my productivity at work, shall I say? Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. But when we saw him at the end of season awards, didn't we? That was a bit of a weird one then. It sort of just got that sense of, right, there must be something going on here. John Meeks seemed okay with it, and we have to hope that John Meeks is okay with the situation that's happened. I remember Lee, you saying towards the end of last season, maybe the club should have just given Meeksy a contract till the end of last season, seen how it goes, and then that would have been the sensible approach, but obviously that's not happened. So a bit of a surprise. As I said, fans have been mixed. I think the reaction on social media was probably a bit more negative than maybe the club expected in terms of fans' response to him coming back. Because, we've all said on this podcast, haven't we, that we were fine with David Noble going. We understood it was a step up. But I think some fans generally were sort of thinking, right, well, he's left us for a move that maybe it was a step up, but it wasn't the most obvious step up. And he sort of left us at an important time of the season. So I think that annoyed some fans. So to see him come back in that regard, I think has annoyed some. But then you've also got some, I think actually quite a few younger fans that are quite happy with the news as well that I've spoken to.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mixed bag and it's a bit of a shock. And like you said, I feel sorry for John not getting that summer to build. As you know, last season wasn't the greatest, but we did play some good football at times. So yeah, it's at least it's given us something to talk about. That's nice of them, isn't it?
Well, your productivity at work, Jake, it went from negligible to what?
No comment.
Right. Nobby is back, as you may have guessed, as head coach rather than manager. And my take on it is that very few dealings in the comings and goings of players at the park this summer. I may be totally wrong. We've got head head of football. What is he? I can't remember what he's called now, but Harry Wheeler's got some title like that now. And so I'd imagine he, and the rumour is also the previous director of football, got some input with players coming and going. But Nobby, as head coach, is he just responsible for the tactics on the pitch rather than the players? Or have you two got a bit more detail about what Nobby is doing off the pitch and his involvement with players?
Well, Nobby's been at festivals and water parks across the continent, so I'm not entirely sure his involvement's been that proactive in the transfer market. I know that the scouts who follow us on LinkedIn, they seem very enthused by our acquisitions, and maybe they've had a bit more handle in it than what they have. So, but the thing is, though, Tabs, is that we have to take this at face value. I mean, we're going to have a bigger network of people, more sets of eyes and ears, really, because I think long gone are the days now when clubs are relying just on one or maybe two people to manage the club, to coach, to get new players in. The network is so vast now, and I don't think it's done us any harm in the past. So the one thing I hope that Nobby brings back with him during his time from Wealdstone is a little bit of humility. Because I think, as Jake alluded to there, he was walking around Clarence Park for the last home game of the season. It's like a dog with two cocks. He had a massive smile on his face. And it's almost as though you sort of got the impression that he knew something was going to be coming along down the line. But the thing is, that he's got to hit the ground running. They say never come back or never go back. And in some cases, it doesn't end well. What I would say is that you've got to hit the ground running. If you cast your mind, Tabs, to the Hearts County Cup game away to Hitchin last year, the second half was sort of petering out, and there's some fans just sort of talking about it. A lot of them were laughing at the situation at Wealdstone. And I have to say, there weren't too many tears shed in David Noble's direction. And going by the point that you've made with all your little clique there, I don't think, there's no love lost. I wouldn't say he's burnt bridges, because I think that's a bit extreme. And we've all had a full-throated defence of Nobby in the past. What I would say is that there was a large section of last season when it wasn't going particularly well. Performances weren't great by any stretch, and results were even worse. So what I would say, if it gets off to a bad start this time around, those voices of discontent won't only grow in number, but they'll also grow in volume.
What do you expect from Nobby this time around in his style of playing, Jake? Do you see any change from last time? It was pretty negative.
I wondered how long it would take for you to mention that. I don't see much of a change at all, to be honest. At Wealdstone, he didn't particularly change much in his approach. We heard reports of him doing the old dropping forwards that would score goals for maybe players that weren't necessarily those that would score goals, which we experienced a fair bit under Nobby. But towards the end of his reign, it has to be said, did stop, and he did sort of stop doing that. And surprise, surprise, we actually started scoring goals and winning games. So hopefully he follows that. I don't expect much of a change at all. I think we've already seen that in the midfielders we've signed this summer, which we'll get on to. They're very technical, skillful ball players. And I think that will carry on. My only hope is, hopefully, if Sean Jeffers is here, and again, we'll touch upon that he'll actually be starting games. And one one supporter asked us the question of how many minutes in pre-season will Sean Jeffers get this summer? As it wasn't a lot last summer, hopefully it'll be a few more this summer. So that's not from us; that is from a supporter that asked. So don't blame us about that question.
Right, you talked about coming on to squad and whatnot, Jake. So let's do it. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? A dozen players gone. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were on loan from clubs further up the pyramids, and we always knew they were going to go back. You know my feelings on loan players. But also players we lost: Ibia Canby, Ryan Blackman, gone to Chelmsford. We dropped him for the final. Also rested him for the final game of the season at Tunbridge Angels because they didn't want him booked and starting this season with a 3-match ban. Out of all the City supporters, who on earth really thought he was going to stay at Clarence Park this season? I didn't.
Well, I actually spoke to Ryan very briefly after his departure, and I mean, trust me, that's a whole new pod, Tabs. It's a whole new pod. I think the thing with Ryan Blackman is that, by his own admission, he probably didn't perform as well as he could have last year. But that said, I mean, you know, we spoke at time and at length about the lack of leaders, and we need people like Ryan Blackman, not necessarily Ryan, because look, we don't want people at the club who don't want to be there, but I get the impression that Ryan did want to stay. But again, he's not there now, so we have to look further afield. But what you've got a settled side there, but Nobby's now come back in. I think it's his opportunity to old broom sweeps clean. He's got a second stab at this, and if it means getting rid of the likes of Ryan Blackman and Ibia Canby, who, as you know, heartfelt as he was and as solid enough as he wasn't really at the level that we needed him to be, then so be it.
What about you with Ryan, Jake?
Yeah, I'm sad to see him go. I thought he was a good player. I think, as Lee said, last season wasn't his greatest, and Ryan would be happy to admit that himself. But when he did play, at least he looked like he cared and looked like he was trying. I think we saw that in the last couple of games last season, where, do you remember he was playing at centre half at times, trying to do a job there, and he may not have been perfect at it, but at least he put it in. You saw it at Slough. He changed the game coming on with that cross in. He gave the midfield some oomph and emphasis. And while, again, it wasn't always perfect and it wasn't always perfect style of play and it wasn't always forwards, it at least gave us a little bit of a drive in the middle of the pitch, which I think we will miss if we don't necessarily replace him with a like-for-like player, but I think we probably have, hopefully. But it'll be a shame to see Ryan go because, as well, I think he was just a lovely guy who really got along with the fans and was a bit of a character. And you don't always get those. You don't always get those at this level now, especially footballers that come through academies and are so desensitised to what football may mean to supporters or how much it means to other people. So I thought Ryan was a really good character. It's a shame to see him go, and shame to see him go to another club in our division.
Sam Brown, left back, gone. Couldn't agree terms. Presumably we offered him too much. But I think we've already got a replacement there, so we can come on to that in a minute anyway. Nathan Carlisle, Raul de Silva, they're out on loan most of the season anyway. Another midfielder, Kyron Wiltshire. He hardly played last season because of injury. Would you have liked to have seen him back in our colours this season, or would you think maybe best days might be behind him?
This is really hard to say. Again, he wasn't the same player, was he, when he came back? And to be fair, I think if he gets a pre-season, he might, be a bit like that player again. But it's all. I remember, Lee, we talked about when he had that injury, you had real doubts as to whether we'd actually ever see him in a Saints shirt again. So I think we were both a bit surprised to see him come in and feature. He did okay, but he didn't do much, did he, like that we expected of him? And unfortunately, it's been tarnished by who he's gone to as well.
Never heard of him. Ben White's gone. Injury put paid to his season last year, so we didn't see the best of him by a long way. Moving up front a bit, Mitchell Weiss. I thought he'd be here next season, I must admit. Surprised to see him go.
Yes, I am, absolutely. I think he was used a bit more sparingly towards the latter end of the season, but I don't think it affected his productivity. When he came on, he looked dangerous. He created chances. He created assists. I don't think there's a single fan on the terraces at Clarence Park who would ever question Mitch's desire and his heart He gave absolutely everything, whether he was on for the full 90 or whether he was on just for 9. The space he creates for other people cannot be exaggerated. The fact is that he's one of those players who you can relate to. He just gives everything. But along with that, what a class player. His touch as well, in and around the box, just creates awareness. He's an intelligent footballer. And it's going to be a massive miss, probably a lot more than people think. I mean, him stepping down, yes, we know he's gone for a bit more money. Now, the fact is, there's a correlation here. Wiltshire's gone for a bit more elsewhere. Ryan's gone for a bit more elsewhere. Mitch has gone for a bit more elsewhere. I just hope that it doesn't become the start of our oncoming, because although we have to be sustainable and we work to a budget, when we're losing good players, our recruitment was poor start of last year. We need to recruit properly in order to make sure that those key players are replaced within the budget we've got, of course.
Yeah. What about you, Jake?
I think Mitch's departure is probably the one that will actually end up hurting us the most. I think he's a very unique player as well. He's a forward. He might not score lots of goals, but his style of play, his speed, his height and ability to win aerial balls as well, I thought made him very unique and a sort of a forward that we've not really had at Clarence Park previously before. He'll be difficult to replace. He tried hard, and it'll be interesting to see who we bring in to replace him and what they can do. Especially when we also, don't have the other striker. We don't think signed up yet. We don't know. So a lot of question marks in that attacking area now, I think. And again, it's such a shame to see him go to another team in the division, but you can understand the reasons why.
Well, we got him from Kings Langley, wasn't it? He was an unknown quantity to us, but I remember at the time Ian Ridley said that's a good signing. He was proved dead right. So that's rather a shame to see Mitch go. Something else on that, let's slip me by. Right, we've got 3 new arrivals. Then we got onto a retained list, which is remarkably short at the moment. The new arrivals, first one from Hampton, Sam Deadfield, who is centre midfield, it says. Do you remember him at all last season? He played in one of the 2 games against us.
So he's stuck in your memory then, Dave?
Yep. 151 games, Hampton, 16 goals overall. I've got a cracking stat in a minute about all our 3 new signings. What's the feedback generally been like? Has it been good on the social medias?
Yeah, I think to Sam and the other 2 signings as well, it's been fairly positive. I think the good thing that I've seen so far, again, Sam Deadfield, he's not the most memorable, but I think he's the sort of player that is happy to keep the ball, move around with it, and I think he will suit David Noble's style of play, which I think is the case with the other 2 signings. Is that we're signing players from this level, from clubs at our level. We're not dipping down to divisions below. I think that's been quite important in terms of if support is seeing us at least trying to sign players from this level, especially after losing, Wyatt, well, not really Wyatt, but Blackman, Vice, and Wiltshire, 3 established players at our level who fans have built quite a connection with. So I think signing these sort of names, a bit like Sam Deadfield, I think quite important for the club in terms of building there for the new season.
Do you know anything about him at all, Lee?
No.
Good, right. Right, when we got on to 2, you probably do know something about the duo from Braintree Town, Alfie Payne and Lewis Michio. Michio was flagged out as twice National League self-promotion winner in the last 2 seasons with Oxford City when he did play a lot of games. Last season with Braintree, he only started in 6 league games, so he wasn't that influential in their rise up the league. And in 2 games against us, he only came on in the second one in the 88th minute, so we didn't see a lot of him at all. Alfie Payne, though, he's been at Braintree a fair old while. I think it's 150 odd games and smacked in 2 goals. You've got connections at Braintree, Lee. What do you make of these 2 signings?
Yeah, decent actually. I spoke to both the media fellow there and the chairman at Braintree. In terms of Michio, couldn't wait to get him out the door. He was on quite a lot of money, and the return from the only fact is that the return wasn't there. He was a fringe player at best. good lad, solid enough. And to be honest with you, that's all we really need from our fullbacks, right? It's just solid, hard working, certainly, but not one that's going to pull up any trees. Alfie, on the other hand, they were extremely sad to let go. You know, he was the real linchpin for that side. Unfortunately, when Braintree got promoted, he wasn't prepared to travel nationwide. He's got an extremely good job at the Bank of England, so he doesn't really want to sort of jeopardise that by having to go up to Oldham on like a Tuesday night. Really good player. If it wasn't for Partington, I think there could be a potential for him to be captain, or at least vice captain somewhere along. He's got that sort of input on the game. He's got that temperament. So one of the feedbacks we got is the fact that he doesn't care whether you're a 34-year-old seasoned professional or whether you're an 18-year-old kid. If you need a bollocking, he's going to give you a bollocking, and that's the sort of person we need at the minute. I think also he loves to play football. He loves to get the ball down, look up. His array of passing is great, and I think looking at that now, he's the perfect replacement for Ryan Blackman. He leaves a foot in on people if he needs to. He can get creative. I think once he links up with the likes of Banton as well and Gio, who knows? I mean, he could be the signing of the entire summer. The fans were, demoralised to see him go, but they understand the reasons why he did.
Well, leaving the foot in got him 11 yellow cards last season. Deadfield got 9 at Hampden. You impressed with these 2 signings, Jake?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Mickey O, the fullback, but he can also play left centre half. So I wonder if we might see him there potentially. I think I said his spell at Braintree second half of this season or last season wasn't great, but it is to note that he was with Oxford City the first half of the season and did feature in the National League. I think 20 odd appearances for them in the National League, probably half on the bench, half starting. So that's not bad, is it? And like you said, Dave, season before that, he was a crucial part of that Oxford City team that rolled us over in that playoff final, didn't it? And if we can get him somewhat similar to that again, and, the style of play is very similar to what we suspect David Noble want to play. So he's already got that. And I said the other midfielder, the signing from Braintree, absolutely brilliant. I think this could easily be some signing of the summer, as Lee said. What's great is he seems like Ryan Blackman, doesn't he, in a way, but maybe possibly better, which is absolutely brilliant. I think it's worth noting as well how much talk on social media was from other clubs and other supporters saying how big a signing this could be for us this season. He was crucial. Even if you watch the highlights of the playoff final win for Braintree over Worthing, he played a crucial bit in all their sort of good play on the afternoon. He had one brilliant sort of cross-field ball to set up, I think, their third goal. He looks like a really, really good signing.
Right, last season, the 3 of them accumulated 25 yellow cards, but the stat that will really delight Nobby, the way he played under him last season, is not one of them scored a league goal.
Although Alfie Payne did have a goal ruled out in the playoff final, didn't he? So we'll count that maybe. Half a goal, Dave?
Taz, all these stats are for cards, mate. Does it not show you their level of commitment to the course?
Who's called? Who's called? What
cause? It's a tough sell, Jacob. Help me out here, buddy.
I know.
Right. You're going on about signings we've made so far at our level, which is good. There's nothing wrong with getting them from lower level. We've had plenty of successes in recent years. Yeah. And you'd imagine as the summer goes on, there's going to be a load more signings. There's got to be a load more signings. We could barely fill 7-a-side team at the moment. From what I've heard, Nobby's going to look at players in the pre-season games. There's 5 of those, and then make signings from that, which makes you think you're getting the leftovers by then that can't get clubs. Which means on another point you made earlier, Lee, about clubs need a big scouting system and whatnot, and hundreds of people on the payroll and whatnot. But it's easy as anything nowadays. Every player's got an agent, and the agents are getting in touch with clubs all the time. I think I had 3 agents in the last year wanting Nobby's number and whatnot. And when did it Wealdstone? I willingly gave it to him. And but once again, it's easier for players to let clubs know they're around, because they don't have to do anything. It's the agents get in touch. So acquiring players maybe not as difficult as one would imagine. I may be totally wrong. It won't be the first time. Shall we get on to our retained list?
Oh God.
Unless you've seen anything else there, but I haven't. It's a magnificent quartet at the moment. Michael Johnston, no complaints there.
No.
Do you agree, Jake?
Yeah. I mean, the only risk with MJ is he seems to be injured for 10 games a season, isn't he? There's always that risk of, are we going to have that panic of trying to find a lone keeper? But when he has played, I think he's always been reliable. So,
yeah, I think we're real pleased with that one. Zane Bantam's back for about his 48th year, I think. It's good to see him back. It maybe tailed off a bit towards the end of last season, but when he came back after injury last year, that was like the old Zane, wasn't it?
yeah, it was. And I think a lot of last season, he wasn't always played in the strongest position, was he? He spent a lot of time last season sort of having to defend at times. So it'd be nice to see him a bit more forward in a bit more of a freer position, because you know how good he can be.
Well, we look at the signings, the players we got there, like saying, maybe we will see them in a more attacking role. And also another one of the retained players, Gio Rasulu. And I would like to see us push him forward more and really work him harder, because I think we can get a lot out of him.
Yeah.
I thought we should have got more out of him last season.
Yeah, the thing with Gio is he had some excellent spells in loads of games, but I think he went missing in a few others as well, probably when we needed him the most. He seemed to tire quite quickly in key games as well. But when he's on it, when he's bang on it, I think I've mentioned this a few times actually to some lads that he's a Joey Beecham sort of player. Those old enough to remember Joey Beecham for Oxford United, absolutely fantastic player. When it's glorious sunshine and you sort of 2-0 up, out come the flicks and the turns and the passings impeccable and all that. But when you're a goal down and you need someone to step up to the plate on a wet Tuesday night away to Welling, it doesn't always quite materialise. But look, he's got given another sort of chance now. And I like Gio. Absolutely love him. But I think he needs the productivity and the end result needs a bit more of improvement for this season.
Did you get your vote, Jake?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like Lee said, it'd just be nice. I mean, perfect fit for me is probably Torquay away, wasn't it? That brilliant 4-0 win. And he was almost unstoppable that day. He tore Torquay to shreds. I mean, all of our players did. They were so bad. He was brilliant, but that's because Torquay gave him so much time and space on the ball. And we took the lead so quickly that he had no pressure. He could just control the game from the central midfield. So it'd be nice to see him do that in those slightly tougher games, like Lee says.
And the other retainee who's been announced so far is captain Joe Partington. That is no one. Seemed to tail off a bit towards the end of the season, but was in excellent form for a long time. So if he produces that form again, fine. How old's he now? How old are you, Joe? You're only 34. Me a kid. I think it's good to have him back again.
It would have been even better if he gave us those shoes that we were after. Those Skechers, mate. They weren't exactly forthcoming, were they, Joe? All joking aside, I think it's a fantastic signing for us. He read the game exceptionally well. I think you've looked at the list of retainees there, Tabs, but I think the most sort of glaring omissions are the players we haven't quite signed yet. There's still massive gaping holes in our team. One notably is who's be paired up with Joe in the back. I still think we're centre half short and possibly some attacking options as well. So, yes, it's good to have him there. I mean, we spoke about Clarkey latter end of last year. I don't think Clarkey's an option at the minute because you're going to miss him for half the season with his injuries. And, we can't have that. We love Clarkey. He's fantastic. His endeavour cannot be questioned at all. But you cannot have a centre half in the key position and only be available for 2/3 of the season. So who's going to parts in the back and who's going to be scoring all of the goals? Cue David Tavener.
Yes, I'm working on my fitness. Players at the back. Dan Bowery. Any word on whether he's staying or going?
I think we've heard that. I wouldn't be shocked if he's a player that Nobby asked to come back for pre-season to see how he gets on.
Is not the
But
answer.
No, but I also wouldn't expect him to be offered a deal. We might be proven wrong, but that was the soundings we'd heard.
Well, we weren't in favour of Nobby coming back, and we're not exactly entirely 100% behind Dan Barry, so he'll obviously be captain next season. Some other players, well, some of those are just squad players anyway. Harun Hamid, haven't heard what's happening. Any word on Jack James?
Jack James, we had heard, didn't we, Lee, that he was signed or close to signing, but doesn't seem to have happened. Hasn't been announced yet. So.
Right, a couple of other squad ones there. Benjamin Mensah, George Morale. Ben Smith. One would imagine he's going to be with us next season. He may be on a contract here next season. That's maybe why I haven't said anything. You two heard anything on that? I've heard nothing.
Again, I think we heard that it was likely he was going to stay. But you just looking at those signings we've made in midfield, you wonder if Ben Smith is thinking, am I going to get much game time at the minute? I don't know. I think Ben Mensah is another one that we think was already under contract for next season because we signed him February, March.
Really?
So there's been a few fans chatting that he was possibly given like an 18-month deal. We don't know that. So that could be why he's not been announced.
Right, one other one that hasn't been announced, as far as I can tell, is a chap up front who didn't do much for us in the first half of last season. He got 1 or 2 goals in the second half. Sean Jeffers. Why haven't we heard anything?
Does it surprise you, Dave? Does it honestly surprise you?
No, our media department and PR is shocking at the moment. You're dead right. But it would have been nice if we had said something about this guy who's banged in so many goals for us. He's gone past 100 now.
Right, before you go lumping in on the media department, I'm sure there's a reason as into why things look. Well, I had this conversation with a few of the lads on the chat that Jake and I are part of. When the club are ready, they'll announce something. You don't really know the intricacies of who's and what's and why's and where's. All I would say, Tabs, is there's a bloody great big mural being painted up the top end of Adelaide Street, and Sean Jeffers is part of this mural. So ultimately, that means he's going to go, right? So we're going to be in the market for a new striker imminently, I'm guessing.
What do we do, Jake, if he goes, or what do we do if he stays? Because he's on his own up front at the moment. If he stays,
well, yeah, that's why there's quite a lot of work to do. So we talk about the media team. I think it's fair to say the announcements this summer, the way it's been handled, etc., I think has left some supporters a bit confused and a bit concerned at times. You know, we went quite a while with no announcements, and then we announced quite a few departures. Supporters were concerned, and then since then they gave us a rash of noise and news over a weekend. There's not been anything since. So I think, like Lee says, with Sean Jeffers, it's hard for us to say, and it's hard for us to use, what should be done when, because we don't know the contract situation, do we? We haven't known for a while. There's so much chat last year about an extension, a trigger, all these sort of things. If there is or if there isn't, there is no doubt some sort of interest in Sean Jeffers from other clubs this summer. You would have thought, whoever those clubs are, no doubt. We know previous summers there's been interest. So I'm sure that situation is ongoing. And then again, the noises that we've heard have been positive, but there's just no guarantee of him signing at the minute, is there? So until it's announced, we don't know. I mean, I wonder that we've seen the new away kit. I better not mention that. I know some supporters are sort of promoted at a music festival over the weekend, and you just wonder if there's going to be some sort of connection and work there with Sean Jeffers being revealed in that potentially in the coming weeks. We don't know. But being football fans and also St Albans City fans, we just want news, don't we? We just want to know who's going to be out there ready on the 10th of August starting for us.
Surely Sean will advertise a new tracksuit for substitutes because they got to wear something different to the playing kit, haven't they?
I think that, look, the closer it gets to the start of the season, chances are he's going to be here, because if they were going to offload him, look, God forbid he leaves, the club either better have something in the pipeline of equal stature, or they're just clueless. But I'm hoping it's the former. But I'm also hoping, in fact, he's going to stay. He's established here as well. There have been people sniffing around Sean. That I can tell you, absolutely, speaking to a couple of clubs on a national league level. But I think the fact is now he's settled here. He's got a young family. We've talked about this thousands of times. The only thing is, does he want to go through all that rigmarole of having to prove himself again to David Noble at the start of the season? Because the only person who come out of it looking badly was David Noble. And what we need is St Albans City firing on all cylinders. And in order for us to do that, we're going to need Sean Jeffers starting the game.
I agree with you. I think the longer it goes on, the more likely it is that Sean will stay. And also, he's got 32 now. All right, he's still banging in a lot of goals each season. But other clubs are going to be reluctant at that age to give him a good wage for a couple of seasons because not writing you off, Sean, but at that age, it can disappear quite quickly, your form. If you slow down.
What, Nobby, calm down.
But for us, I think he's still the perfect fit as things stand. Right, that's the squad, isn't it?
At the minute, but like you sort of said a minute ago, Dave, even if Sean does sign, there's a lot of gaps still to fill in that squad, isn't there, for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah.
I think we'd heard a whisper about a fullback that is playing for another club based in Hertfordshire that is potentially going to be signing, but again, we don't know about that. But there's a lot of gaps. They said, and there's a lot of squad filler as well required. You know, we're going to need a big squad going into the new season, so there's a lot of work to do. And I think if this is a squad now that we go into pre-season with, I think supporters will start to be a little bit concerned, a little bit panicky again over the next couple of weeks because, you know, bad news loves a vacuum, doesn't it? And if we don't announce any more signings over the next 3 weeks or so, fans are thinking, oh God, we haven't got much of a squad going into pre-season.
They have, but what I would say, the club didn't really sort of balance it right when they're announcing season ticket prices on the same weekend they're letting 8 players go with no one else signed. So, but the thing is as well, yes, there's a lot of spaces to fill, but there's quite a bit of time left as well. I mean, what are we like third week in June? We don't have our first pre-season game for a good 3 weeks or whatever it is. There's still time there. Getting back to your point, Tabs, if I may, a bit earlier on, the closer it gets to pre-season, players going to be invited down. Nobby's going to take a look at them and whatever. You spoke about dregs there. Yeah, there's a lot of shite there as well. But what I would say is that in terms of agents, players get a bit twitchy. Players demand X amount, and the sooner clubs don't want to pay X amount, they want to pay Y amount. And obviously, the longer it goes on over the course of the summer, players don't get signed up. Good players don't get signed up, and then they start getting a bit twitchy, and that's when bargains can be had. It just depends whether the club want to pay the going rate for good players. Let's wait and see.
Yeah. The friendlies will tell us, I guess.
Yeah.
Friendlies, for those who haven't noticed, Leighton Orient at home on 16th of July, Leighton Orient 11, Tottenham 11 on the 20th, Spurs first teams at QPR that day. 23rd of July, Royston Town away. 27th, Luton Town 11 at home. And they end on the 30th with a trip to Hayes and Yeading United. And then we have our first competitive match, which is good, I think. The Heart Charity Cup final from last season. Pottersbar Town, technically it's an away game, but it's being played at Clarence Park because their ground is shut while they get rid of that nice green stuff and the plastic put in. I mean, to me, it's good to have some sort of competitive match just before the season starts, and particularly when you've got a relatively short list of games as we have.
Yeah, but as you say, you know, I think gone are the days when clubs are rarely playing the 11, 12, 13 pre-season friendlies that we used to have. How many times do we have to go to? I mean, we were almost playing 3 times a week at one point, maybe 10 years ago even, you know, and that's when injuries occur, you know, and you want to get a better idea of people and combinations and whatever. So we've got a good balance there, mate, and you've got a competitive game thrown in there as well. Hopefully, by that point, we have a better idea of maybe a starting 11.
Yeah. One of you mentioned admission prices, season ticket prices earlier. Now, can someone tell me why an adult season ticket is £285, but if you're another adult but younger, but you're an adult working the thing, it's £85? How the hell does that work?
See, we got mugged off from the club for conversations just like this, Tav. So I think Jake and I are going to sit this one out, buddy. Look, it's what it is. I mean, it's the going rate now, mate. Because the thing is, don't forget that good, honest people are being priced out of going to their first choice Premier League game or Championship game. Tickets for those sort of levels now are extortionate. And I think that our fan base has grown and our tendencies have grown largely off the back of that as well. Because, you know, we can play some good football. We've attracted players. We've got a good setup at the club now, global media footprint. And hopefully we'll see our attendances rise and rise and rise. But with that extra money, hopefully what we want to see that reinvested back into the squad as well.
But it's not extra money. You're letting kids in up to the age of 23 for our Zippo. And gates generally in non-league have grown since COVID. It's not just us. But that said, our gates are fantastic.
Yeah.
The price, your pound you're getting per person may not be as great as you would think from looking at those figures, but they make up on other things, of course, because of all the food and booze outlets around the grounds. Anyway, while we're on that subject, matchday admission has gone up 9%. Inflation is currently 3%, and the last 2 seasons we have gained more points away from home than we have at home. But of course, you can get a ticket online for the same price as last season.
So, are you happy? Are you?
No, I'm just
angry?
saying factually.
Right.
Saying
Okay.
fact, matchday admission's gone up 9%. That's all. I didn't put it up. I'm just saying the fact.
I didn't put it up. It's a great defence.
I mean, what a politician! What a politician! Must be a general election game. Are you going to be standing anywhere, Tav, soon or not? That's a great response, mate, to a genuine question.
Monster raving loony party.
All right, it was David Law's such. Didn't he have St Albans connection? Sure, he did actually.
Actually, on the ticket prices, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I expected worse in terms of pricing and everything that was going to happen. Not too bad, especially the early bird season ticket offer as well, which has worked out quite well. And compared to some of the other clubs in our division, pretty much all prices gone up across the board. So not too bad. Bit of a throwback to the old, pay on the gate, pay in advance debacle back to 4 or 5 years ago, which didn't go down well then. But hopefully it will work better this time. The reception on social media seems to be more positive this time. So I think it would have been easy for the club to really that 16. I didn't expect there to still be a £16.50 admission price for adults of any sort. So at least that's a positive this summer. We haven't totally gone mad with the pricing, so that's really good.
Due to rises at so many other clubs last season and this season coming, our price now is roughly the average price. So that's a reasonable price to have, one would have thought. Even better.
Are you happy? Are you angry? What's
I'm happy, Lee. By the time season starts, I'll be a concessionary old git rate, so I'm delighted.
What are you now, man? For the love of God.
Yeah, thank you. Right, other little snippets. If you're waiting for the fixtures, they're out on the 10th of July. People probably already know that. No double header at Christmas this time. It's going to be changed around, so that makes it a bit more interesting. But it used to be nice getting 4 or 6 points off Hemel. There we go. Have you two got any other stories? One I want to chuck in, actually. You mentioned Joe Partington, didn't get his shoes off him. Well, what about Mitchell Weese's shameful attempt to get the Player of the Year award last year down at Torquay? Remember the story?
Well, I think I know it, but go on. What's your version?
Well, I shan't mention the amount, but he gave a wad of money over to travelling supporters, a section of them, we said, to go out and go and have a beer or two to celebrate the 4-0 win. It didn't work, Mitch, but good try.
The worst thing Mitch could have done that day is give so many people, irresponsible people, his phone number. Because, bless them, they've got the best wallet in the world, but they abused that royally towards the end of the season, especially after he left as well. I've got a little thing, a sad note actually. So one of you two boys better have something uplifting after I finish this. We said goodbye to City supporter Paul Spink a month or so ago. He was one of the coaches for the disability side and also played for the disability side himself. He was a good friend of mine, actually. We got to know each other quite well. He had some difficulties that we spoke about, and I think he was a real genuine fella, and he loved the club absolutely with a passion of a Nova. Even when I saw him walking through town, he was fully decked out in Saints clobber. It's unfortunately he's passed away. He's left a massive hole in the disability network of the club, and I hope that the club step up and recognise him in some way into the new season. So that is So Paul, you are missed, my friend, and I know that that you are much loved and you will be missed.
Well said, Lee.
Well said. Well,
Jeez.
we need something positive then after that. So one supporter asked us for what do you think our target should be for next season?
Our target, as in the podcast, to upset as many people as humanly possible, or the club's target?
Well, it's interesting because if you look around the league, you've got Torquay United, who've got new owners now, and they look to be getting their act together. You got Bournemouth. He wants to jump straight back up, take them back up. Maidstone United are making some good signings, and they were pretty strong last season as well. Championship might be a bit beyond us, and with just 7 players, the top 7 could be slightly beyond us at the moment as well. And I can't see the club aiming for anything more than the playoffs, and that might just be a wish rather than a real desire.
I think you're right, and I think that much has been lauded upon about our matchday experience, which is fantastic. But I think now there's got to be don't shake your head, Tabs. Let's hear me out, mate. But there's got to be a balance now. It's about time that the club are focused about the matchday experience. How about focusing about the product you're serving up on the pitch? Because people are loyal, but they're not stupid, and they will only watch what's being served up if it's decent and palatable over, a season. There were times last year where, it was quite fractious on the terraces, and we need investment, and it was quite obvious where we needed investment. We still need lots of investment now, and I think hopefully there's a correlation between all this sponsorship that we keep seeing announced over the social media and the increased attendances that we've been speaking of for the last 2 years, Dave. So hopefully that equates to good quality signings over the course of the next month or so, mate.
Well, it would do, except the last set of accounts show we're losing money, Lou. Again, it's fact, not made up, it's only a fact. And hopefully the club has addressed it, and that won't happen this season.
Enough out of Dave's politics.
By playing 7 players.
Yeah.
What do you make of things, Jake? It's going to be quite competitive at the top of the table.
Yeah, I think what you said to start with a minute ago, I think about the how tough the division is going to be this year. You've even got the likes of Hornchurch, Chesham, who we know are spending money. As a fact, they are bringing in good players. They are spending big.
A fact.
A fact.
It's another fact.
At least budget-wise, big in terms of what we would probably spend. And we've even got teams like Chelmsford who are going towards a full-time model. I know they've got training sort of mornings next season, so it's going to be really, really difficult. And even if we do put together a good team this season, which in the midfielders we've signed already, I think gives us an inclination, but we might have a good team. Might not be enough because of the amount of other good full-time and even part-time teams that are spending big money this season. We might not be able to do anything about it. And I just hope that we don't come to regret the end of last season and the sort of collapse out of the playoffs. I think we all identified, didn't we, last season? It was a tough division, but there was a route to potentially a playoff victory, maybe somehow, if we kept that good run towards the end. Look at Braintree. They weren't spectacular, were they, last season? But they were a good, well-built side. They were well-drilled, and it's gone to the National League now. And look how it's going to go for them next season. So I hope we don't regret it, but it's going to be really, really difficult. But then we said this last summer when we talked about Torquay, etc., and look at that. So, it could be exactly this. Yeah, haven't, etc. We saw full-time teams go down last season. So it could be exactly the same this campaign, but it's going to be really, really hard.
And usually, Jake, you made some very good points. In fact, I was supremely optimistic towards the end of the season, as usual. And I thought we were going to make the playoffs the way it was going. And the way it just fell apart was incredible. And still, there we go. That's been corrected now with new management team, which is basically the management team.
Well, we've brought back the manager that got us to a playoff final, Dave. So surely you can't complain. So
We'll give it a good go, mate. Don't worry about that.
I'll find something.
well, I think is that the end for now? Have we put people through enough? I think.
I think so. Well, one thing I would say is that we've got Meeksy who wants to definitely come on the pod. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Ryan Blackman definitely wants to come on the pod. He's got a lot to say. That is a fact. But this is your pod as much as it is ours. So please do keep getting in touch. Send us your questions, your messages, your emails, your abuse, feces through our letterboxes. Just send it all to us. And we'll deal with it as and when. Jacob's going to give you all the information you need right now.
Yeah, Podful of Saints on Twitter, email, get in
Bit
contact.
more enthusiasm, mate. It's the first one.
Sorry,
Come on, for
Podful of
Christ's
Saints
sake,
on Twitter, email below. Oh my God, it's all happening. And we will be back soon. Hopefully, after a few more bits of news in the coming weeks, we'll be back again to discuss everything going on and looking ahead probably to pre-season. So thank you all very much for joining us again. We don't know why you bother, why you put up with us. It's amazing, really. How's this been going on for six seasons? This is ludicrous. I mean,
Is it noise the clock?
unbelievable. Yeah. Yes. And we will speak to you again very soon. So thank you all very much for joining. And come on, you Saints. Bye-bye all.